Hey guys, Santol here, and I'm going to do a little bit of a Banlist discussion, more so based on just Snake Eye and what I think of it post Banlist, because I think people are really overreacting and having somewhat knee-jerk reactions to the Banlist. So one common thing I see online is people talking about how this list did not hit Snake Eye hard enough, how it's going to be probably the best deck right now, or one of the best decks in post-order will be back to being tier 0. And I think that that kind of assessment is a bit panicky and not accurate at all. I think the last Banlist actually completely murdered Snake Eye. I do not think it will be tier 1 again. Post-Road, I expect it to be a tier 1.5, but I think the deck still has a lot of flaws, and right now I don't think it's really functional much at all. I shouldn't say it's not functional at all. It's fine, you can play it, but I consider it kind of in the same pile as all those other decks, Cash, Pearly, it's fine, it can work, but there are a lot of flaws with it you can take advantage of, and there's no real reason to play it over any other deck unless you really like the deck. So I want to talk about how they hit the deck and how people's assessment of how they hit it is a bit wrong. So they hit in two ways. So one, they hit the consistency, and the other way they hit it is actually the end board. So one common thing I hear with people complaining about consistency hits is that they say that consistency hits never work and they shouldn't be done. And that's not quite true. The comment towards consistency hits is that you shouldn't do them because they don't actually prevent degenerate things from happening. If a deck's doing something degenerate and you lose starters, you just do something degenerate less. And that's not good because it still leads to degenerate game states. It still leads to these kind of games where you're not having fun. And the other half is, okay, the consistency hits actually did hurt, and probably who's playing that deck is just not doing anything because they break. And so it doesn't lead to a very interesting type of game state. But they are still hits. And the thing with this ban list is that we didn't just get consistency hits. We got hits to the end board. So the general stuff that's happening isn't happening anymore. We have Beatrice banned, so we're no longer doing blue tier stuff. We also have Apollo banned, so these end boards are not incredibly unbreakable like they were before. Unbreakable. And you can have the consistency hits on top of the actual powerful hits to the end board. I also think that people are really underestimating how effective and how hard these consistency hits hit because there were so many of them. It wasn't a matter of we lost 2 starters or 1 starter or something. We can replace it easily with something else. We lost a very large amount of starters. So if we're looking at a DTS list, we want Nationals, NA, WCQ with Snake Eye. If we go through this list, it has about 18 starters, whether you want to count an original and Lurie as starters. So you have the 3 Ash, 2 Poplar, 3 Witch, so 8, Fiendsmith 11, Bonfire 14, Wanted 17, and we'll say like each of these like half a starter or so. So about 18, 19 starters in 45 cards. 45 cards is nice because there are a lot of cards you don't want to draw. Flamberge, Oak, the Lurie, Original Temple, Azure Statue. So being able to play more is already nice. So even in a 45 card deck, you have 18 starters and you have a very consistent deck. So going through the numbers, it's a nice little website. You can just type in Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck probability calculator to come up to this. It will help you calculate the odds of opening some cards. Of course, there are more kind of complicated scenarios where, maybe you open a weird specific combination of cards, or you're opening like Wanted Witch, so even though you have 2 stars, it's only 1. But for the sake of argument, this is a good way to get a rough estimate to how consistent your deck is. So in a 45 card deck, with hand size 5 and 18 stars, we have a 93% chance of opening 1 starter. And if we want to open 2, so the ability to play through 1, if not 2 hand traps, because you can go in the Fiendsmith cards if you get the bodies, you have a 67% chance of opening 2 starters. So what that means is 2 out of 3 games you're going to be opening 2 starters and be able to play through at bare minimum 1 hand trap. Okay, well, how does this look going forward? I'm going to immediately reduce the deck count to 40, so saying we are going to draw these bad draws a bit more to really maximize consistency here. And what you'll see is that you still end up with a significantly less amount of starters. So in this list, if we were to cut it down to the post-ban list, none of the Fiendsmith cards at all are starters, and we also have 2 less Ash and 1 less Poplar. So our starters are exactly the 1 Ash, the 1 Poplar, 3 Witch, 3 Wanted, 3 Bonfire, and the 1 1-for-1 you can also throw in. So going to our calculator, we have 12 starters in 40, and the odds of us opening 1 starter is 85. So it's already gone down about 8%, so that means roughly every 11-ish games, you'll see a 1 less starter, which means you're going to be breaking, 1 in every 4, 1 in 5 matches completely. Hard breaking in those matches when you've already decreased your deck count. Doesn't sound too bad, but the big thing is when you look at the odds of opening 2 starters. So this is what lets you play through 2 hand traps effectively, or at the bare minimum 1. The odds of opening 2 starters in this 40 card deck with 12 starters is only 47%. So what does that mean? We've gone from opening 2 starters in 2 out of 3 games that we play to now opening 2 starters in less than half the games we play. So in more than half the games we play, we will be able to play our 1 starter. They will hand trap that, and we will not be able to recover. We will not have any other cards to be able to save. We don't have other stars. And people are going to say, oh, you can play Crossfit, you can play Talents. Yes, you can, but these cards are worse than stars because they're a bit more specific. What happens when you draw Crossfit with your target? What happens when when you draw Talents? These cards are worse than just the stars. So looking at just the raw stars, you're going to be opening 1 star half your games because the theme specific cards aren't stars and they're not saving your engine. This is a large amount which will add up to a decreased win rate over a large amount of games. I keep seeing combo videos where it's like, oh, here's our 1 card Snake Eye Ash combo, here's our 1 card Witch combo, etc. And these are great, but you have to keep in mind that it's not just you choosing your hand at these tournaments. You're going to be getting a large amount of hands at the tournament, and these consistency hits do matter. That drop of opening good 203 games to less than every other game is a massive, massive hit. The consistency hits do matter, and they will affect the win rate of the deck. Now, going forward, it's not just the consistency hits that matter. It's also talking about the end boards. And the end boards are good, but there are definitely a few problems with them. So this is a sample end board. City Scenes video. Oh, it's a great photo. I paused on picture of him. As you can see here, this board looks very good, but there are a few issues with this end board. The big thing is that we don't have an Omni Gate when we're making this board. So while this board has Flamberge, the Silhouette Rabbit, Desiree, and IP, you have a lot of interruptions. The thing is, your opponent can now play however they want to into that with their hand traps. The problem with playing against Snake Eye before is if they start Snake Eye Ash, I have an Ash Blossom, I'm kind of forced to use it very early on. I can't hold it because my opponent is able to make a Apollo early on. I'm going to get punished by it. I'm not going to be able to use the Ash Blossom at all. Now, if I'm opening 1 hand trap, I can always just choose to use wherever I want to get the most value. And this is the big thing people aren't really looking at. They're looking at how to make good Snake Eye boards, but they're not really paying attention to how much agency the opponent now has when there's not an Ash Blossom or not an Apollo to block the Ash Blossom. So looking at this board, yes, this is a good board, but if you go back to how it was made, when we rewind, there are multiple kind of choke points that really matter now. So if they're going to go summon Ash, I'm not worried about early Apollo. So they're going to do their normal combo, they start link climbing, and when they get to Oak here, when they get to Oak, if I have an Ash Blossom, I'm always able to just Ash Blossom this Oak. And there's no Apollo to block it. And so what does that mean? Well, it means now that there's no Flamberge that's going to come onto the board, and I've effectively cut off the biggest part of the recursion. If I'm opening just Ash Blossom in pre-Banlist Snake Eye, I'm not feeling good about my odds. They go summon Snake Eye Ash, I'm ashing there and hoping it's enough. They have extended, I lose. In this combo, if they have an extender, yes, they can do other stuff, but I killed the best form of their end board. The IP is not going to be able to get on the board freely without sacrificing other parts of the end board, and they're not going to have this insane follow-up. With just 1 hand trap now, I've done the very significant damage to the Snake Eye end board, which wasn't possible before. And it's not just Ash. This is true for all their hand traps. Think about Crow, for example. This is a hand trap I would never have considered playing before the ban list, but now it actually matters a lot. So as he's going to combo, again, normally you'd have an apple here before, but in this case, he gets to this point where he's trying to Princess Revive the Flamberge. There's no Apollo on the board. So now I can choose the Crow this. And what does the Crow do? Well, it turns not only off the Flamberge recursion, but now he can put his IP back. And so with just 1 hand trap, we've gone from, not feeling comfortable against Snake Eye at all to turning, 2 negates off in the form of both IP and DSP, the initial banish, as well as the other banish, as well as you don't have follow-up now. So all you're ending on, if I were to Crow here, is you'll still be able to get to the Silhouette Rabbit because you can revive something else, but you're just ending on Silhouette Rabbit plus Desiree. That is not a threatening board when you've only used 1 hand trap. And even when you go through and let everything resolve and say you've opened no hand traps, the end boards are somewhat specific. This end board, while good in the form of Desiree, Silhouette Rabbit, and IP, is still very breakable. This isn't 2017. You think back to YCS inning last year where Trish was on a tear with Vanadium. He's telling people you need 12 interruptions, double-digit interruptions to stop him. And that's still somewhat true. The engines are super, super good. A lot of these interruptions are super specific as well. If I'm opening a droplet, I'm trading with so much. If I'm opening an Ogre for the IP, I'm trading with so much. And there's just other ways of playing through the engine. If they're not shotgunning the Silhouette Rabbit, I can drop a Fenrir. Now they're immediately in an awkward position. I have to Desiree that. Now Talents is online. You can't get to Desiree with all lines. Sometimes you need Caesar to play around Nib, because if you don't do Caesar, they're just getting destroyed by Nib. But then you don't have the Desier on board, so your talents is destroying your end board. There's just a lot more ways to approach breaking this board. And that's kind of the problem with Snake Eye, is the fact that the consistency gets hit. So it's not making these end boards super consistent amount before because it's getting hand trapped to death. But even when you make these end boards, they're not unbreakable. Sure, they're good, but do you really feel like this is an end board that's unbreakable? If you're playing against Tempai, if you're playing against Brandon, if you're playing against some of these gas decks, like if your opponent goes reveal Sheeran in hand, do you really feel good about your odds in winning this game? Maybe you have some hand traps backed up, but there's no guarantee you're going to have them. There's a lot more decks that will just be able to push through these boards with pure engine. And that's kind of the thing. You had both of these things, the consistency hits and the power decreasing, affecting your win rate. And over the course of the tournament, you're going to lose some games to the consistency hits. You're going to lose some games to the power of your end board going down. And it's going to add up to turn this deck into a significantly weaker deck than it is currently. Also, shout out to Yassine for this video. Amazing for some Snake Eye combos you can look at post video. No comment or negativity towards him. Naturally, it's just discussing how to beat these boards. So post Rhoda, does the Animeza cards not solve the issues of Snake Eye? Does it not solve anything to making your board back to unbreakable and increasing consistency? Well, let's actually look at the Animeza cards because I don't feel like many people have actually tried testing with them and theorizing with them much. They just kind of go, oh, they're tier 0 in the OCG, they're going to be tier 0 here. The reason why they're tier 0 in the OCG is because the Snake Eye engine still has Apollo and Beatrice, so they just have consistency hits with these cards somewhat. So there's 4 main cards in the engine. So the first one is the spell. So this is you tribute a monster from your hand or field, and you get to add the Azamina card. I'm saying that name different every time. I'm going to continue until someone pronounces it to me correctly. So the fusion is you're going to then send this, and you're going to get one of the fusions from your extra deck for just the cost of sending the continuous spell. And what the fusions do, it is either a card that searches Sinful Spoils, which means you just get original, or it is a one-time Omnigate. So it's when your opponent activates a card effect, you tribute it, and then it negates the effect. It might even destroy it. And so, does this say all Snake Eye problems? And the answer is, well, no, it doesn't. You get 4 more starters, which for sure is good and does help with our numbers, taking up to 15, which means you have a 63% chance of opening 2, which is good. But we're still, again, forcing into 40 with another subpar draw in the deck because this is nothing by itself. But the big thing is the end board's still the exact same. This is a Sinful Spoils card, not a Snake Eye card. So the only way you're getting to it is if you open Witch. If you only open 1 starter, you're still going to have to go into original, and you're still just going to do your standard Snake Eye combo. This end board that you're getting to over here is still your standard Snake Eye end board that you're going to be doing. It's not actually increasing the power level of the end boards at all. It's still going to have the issue of, them being, first of all, just breakable, as well as people being able to use hand traps into the board how they like. But what with the Omnigate, does that not solve all the issues? Does that not stop hand traps? Well, it stops the 1 hand trap hand, but if you're playing against a hand trap heavy deck, they're probably going to have 2, if not 3 hand traps. And yes, this gets to trade with 1, but as soon as they trade with the first one, if they have a second one, again, it just trades super effectively into your Snake Eye end board, and you will get punished. I think, regardless, these cards are good, and they will bump Snake Eye up a bit, but it's not like it's rewarping the deck at all. Your end boards aren't getting better. You still have the problems in the hand traps you do now. And the other thing is the other cards in Rhoda coming out are also very good that Snake Eye isn't particularly a fan of. If you look at the new Mall Chummy, which punishes every time you switch from deck or extra deck, this card is insane versus Snake Eye. And they drop on you, you're not going to have fun. You're probably going to pass very quickly with your turn. Snake Eye is not going to want to play against this. This is going to decrease the winning. The other big card is probably the best non-lingering effect hand trap I've seen, which is Impulse, which is basically a warning on legs. When your opponent activates a card effect that special summons a monster from anywhere, you activate this effect from your hand and negate it. I mean, you can't activate the effects of Light, Earth, or Wind for the rest of the duel. And the reason this is a problem for Snake Eye is, 1, super good. You can hold it again for the Oak effect when they try sacking off for Flamberge. Then you can't get anywhere with that. But you also can't use it because you're dependent on having your lights with your Fiendsmith engine making your end board better, because you really do need the Fiendsmith cards to make your end board better. And so, yes, Snake Eye does get a bit of a bump, but they also aren't particularly happy with 2 other cards coming into the format. I just don't see it coming in and completely dominating. Overall, I think that Snake Eye is still a fine playable deck, but I just don't think it has the power level to just completely bully out every other deck in the format. Do you really think it's better than Yubel? Do you really think it's going to be better than perhaps other decks coming out? Some water decks are coming out that are powerful. Even when you look at Rescue Aces, another Sinful Spoil deck, do you think it's just going to be able to power through those decks? And my answer is no. I think that people are just not thinking too much about how to play against Snake Eye. And once you do, you realize that the deck has a lot of flaws that you can take advantage of. Overall, I'm very happy with this list, and I think that Snake Eye is not going to have anywhere near the level of success where it is. And I think its time in Tier 1 is done. I will say, though, the engine is still good. You're going to play in Fire Kings, but I think it'll be much more Fire King focused deck. So if you want to see Snake Eye cards gone completely, that probably won't be the case. It will still have its application as an engine. It will still be very good. But the pure Snake Eye deck, which I think was a lot more annoying to play against than something like Fire Kings, where you could have more specific cards, more cool cards like Soul Release, Shutdown Fusion, things we talked about at the beginning of the format. I think that deck will still appear, but the pure deck is going to take a bit of a hiatus now. Let me know in the comments what you think of the deck and whether you're happy with the ban list, and I will be releasing a Centurion deck profile sometime later this week from the regional I just stopped. It is a post-ban list deck, so there is no Calamity, and I do think that is also another upcoming deck that will be better than Snake Eye post-Sorta. Okay, take care, guys.